Hello and welcome again to this new course on AWS Amazon Web Services in which we'll deep dive onto RDS, Aurora, and Elastic Cache. We'll be going through what is a relational database services which has been offered by Amazon, a very in-depth analysis of what Aurora is and how does it work, and Elastic Cache. So let's begin. Stay tuned. So RDS stands for Relational Database Service. And as we have already gone in our database classes long time back in our engineering or the computer application reviews about what is a RDBMS and what is a flat file and all those things. So we are not going to discuss that, but I'll just go ahead and give you an overview that RDS earlier to just go ahead and set up the entire relational database services onto a particular server. It used to be a huge task. But right now, AWS has just gone ahead and automated this particular process, and we can just go ahead and run any kind of instance of database like Postgres, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, or Aurora, which is a proprietary database by AWS. So Microsoft SQL, again, it comes up with its own licenses and so on. And this is the closed source. Oracle is also a closed source. Aurora can be called a closed source, but rest of them are like open source. So most of us have been acquainted, and we have been using the first three different type of databases in our application layers or in our database layers. So let's move on. It allows to create database in the cloud that is managed by AWS, as I've already explained. And all those database services is been like, maneuvered, as well as it's been, dealt very, very nicely and keenly by AWS. So if you just want to go ahead and spin up something, you can easily go ahead and do that with AWS RDS. Moving on to the next slide. These are the advantages versus deploying the own DB on an EC2 instances. So you can just go through this slide. As you can see that it has automated provision, OS patching and everything. So, you can restore it point in time, any given time of, it has got a continuous backup and restoration within the timestamp. It has got a monitoring dashboard, read replicas. We'll be coming down to read replicas. We have a dedicated section onto this, and improve read, performance. So, while extracting any kind of query or while working on any particular kind of query, it used to go ahead and take a long time. But right now, what Aurora as well as the RDS they have done is they have optimized. So we call it cloud optimized RDS. So that's Aurora. So that's the KSP of Aurora, and we'll be covering that in a deeper section, in a deeper manner in the upcoming sections. Again, multi-AZ setup and DR, disaster recovery. So, earlier, if you have a database on-premise and you just have one server and everything goes and gets dumped onto that particular data center or data server, then if it goes for a toss, what is going to happen? So we have already gone through the concept of AZ, and we can just go ahead and replicate the same instance, for read or write or both purposes to other regions as well as to other AZs. So this makes it, high available. So this is primarily the concept of high availability. Maintenance window, upgrade, scaling capacity. You can just go ahead and vertically as well as horizontally scale up any particular instance which you are running. And, it can, we have already gone through EBS, GP2 and I. So, but you cannot SSH into your instance. So this is something which AWS doesn't offer in current day time. But I think in the coming days, it would even offer you to go ahead and SSH to go ahead and even find tweak. But that's its secret recipe, or it can be called as a secret, which they want to just go ahead and leverage because they have optimized it. So if they open it to the rest of the world, they'll people would come to understand how to go ahead and even optimize your performance of the database. So I think they don't do that at this point in time.
Yeah, I have one question here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, EC2 instance that is also on AWS. Then I mean, what is the difference as such? I mean, why can't we, because all those things like multiple AZs or window patching, we can do on AZ2 as well, right?
Yeah.
But then
It's a
why?
managed service, what I have told in the previous slide. And this entire thing has been covered, the management, the tweaking, the backups, everything. You have got a console for that. So you can just go ahead and tweak everything right from a click of a button. Wherein, if you just go ahead and try to install it on a local premise server or a EC2 or wherever you want to do that, you have to just go ahead and maintain it. That's a burden. If for example, you have provisioned uh, 20 GB of hard drive for a particular database, and one fine day that you come to know that you have to just go ahead and outscale it, and you have to just go ahead and implant, say, about 1 terabyte or something similar to that. Over here, it's just a click of a button matter, but over there you have to stop the database, make a read replication, and then you have to just go ahead and make that particular instance available. And for this particular point in time, either you have to cache the particular data which is current. So if you're in a production role, you have to cache that particular thing and then migrate it to the newer instance which you have created. And this is how it works. So the earlier data are gone. So they are providing as a service. So these are not EC2 instances. These are like automated services which have been optimized and customized just as per your need to go ahead and give you the fullest of the capacity for RDS. Are you getting my point? So as you can go through the slide, the current slide, it clearly says that the transactional logs are backed up by RDS every 5 minutes. So if you are aware of databases, then you might be knowing about the transactional logs, because will not be covering this in this particular section. We can have an offline session for this, but so if any given point of time, if you have a daily backup and if you have a transactional log every 5 minutes, there is no point that you can have even slightest of the slightest data loss. So you can just go ahead and have the transactional log and you have a full backup of daily full backup. So you can just go in that point in time and you can just go ahead and rescale it or get it back to working. You have a 7-day retention that can be increased to 735 days. So this is an examination question, all these kind of, days and the number of limitations and 5 minutes. So just keep in mind, because these would be asked in the examination, that what is the maximum limit of the retention period of, just the backup and so on. So you can just go ahead and, remember these points. You can obviously go ahead and create a snapshot and retention backups for long as you want. So you can just go ahead and create a snapshot, which we'll be going ahead and doing in the lab section. We'll be doing a hands-on onto that. Now, this is a diagram which will just go ahead and clearly state how the read scalability is being, read replica scalability can be deployed and how it works. So first thing first is like up to 5 read replicas can be implemented. So this is something unique feature, because maintaining a read replica onto a local environment or onto a self-managed environment is a huge task. So they are going ahead and giving you the agility to go ahead and make the read replica across 5 regions, across the region or across even AZs. So you can have like two read replicas in one AZ, two different replicas in another AZ, and one replica in the third AZ, if you have 3 AZs available within the same region. There is a asynchronous, there is an asynchronous data transmission replication which goes on. So there is a main DB wherein all the reads and write takes place, and the replication read replicas can be created, which you can see in this particular diagram. They have created 2 read replicas, and there's one main DB which is open to the application for writing purposes. So you do not allow most of the time to go ahead and have a writing authority to the read replicas, because they are essentially created for analytics purposes, or if you have some kind of other purposes, just to go ahead and grill the database, what is where and what exactly is being stored and what are the key values and everything. So you just go ahead and render a read replication for that particular instance or that particular application layer. For example, how to go ahead and illustrate this particular diagram into a real-time feature is, let's take an example. So we have created a database, relational database. You guys are aware about relational database, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, yes.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, yes.
So you have various tables, and all the tables consist of various kind of data sets. So if there is a client wherein he has to go ahead and store, or take an example of Uber, it goes ahead and stores that the billing part, it goes ahead and stores the uh, 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 driver's authentication, the car vehicle, identifications, the kind of passengers which it has loaded. So if you just go ahead and transact it from one database, that would just go ahead and kill the zone. So you can just go ahead and read those tables from, just because you are just using it for reading purposes, and you are not consuming that for writing purpose, because you haven't and got any need to go ahead and write anything onto that particular database, because there is no new entry which is coming up. You are just reading that particular database to go ahead and consume some data, and then pass it on to the application layer, and this application layer can further pass it on to the mobile device, or if you are just reviewing the billing, so you can just go to the website, or you can just go to the uh, email, and you can see the billing. And if there's any kind of query which has to be run, you can run on the read replicas, which would reduce down the bulk on the main database, and your application layer would be consuming more of the database, but at a very lighter level. So none of the threshold levels would be meet out to the main DB ever. So you, as a subject matter expert, as well as a solution architect, you have to design the database in such a manner and create such read replications, uh, in which you can just go ahead and write dedicated queries or dedicated set of queries for individual read replicas, so that the stress on the main database is not overburdened, and you can just go ahead and have an efficient layer of communication between your database and the application layer. So RDS read replicas use case, as you can go through that, the read replica is only for select. That is only for read. You cannot insert, update, or delete from the read replica. So if you have a production environment, you can consume the read replica for just going ahead and having a reporting purpose, wherein you can read some of the fine data, and then you can just go ahead and consume it for reporting, and most of the heavy workload would be taken care by the main DB, as you can go through this particular slide. Moving on to the next slide. This is read replica, but what the network cost comes into. If it's within the same availability zone, there's no cost available, because you have to understand that the servers are more or less in the same proximity, and they are internally connected by fat pipes or backbone. So even regions have been connected by backbone, but these are like low latency backbones which have been interconnected through the same region. But if you have it in, say, about different region, like if you have in US East 1A and you have in US East 1B, so that is the time when in the availability zone is different, and then you can have a cost accrued. Or if you even change the region instead of availability zone, then you can have a cost accrued, because you have to understand that the data is migrating from one instance to another region altogether, or to another availability zone altogether. So that's the reason why the data is costly affair. So as a good gesture, if just a second, Abu. So sorry for that. So as we were talking about the cost, so you have to understand that whenever data is transferred from like one region to another, of course, it takes a lot of bandwidth. It takes a lot of ISP networking and everything, and fat pipes and so on. So definitely anyone would just go and imply a cost onto that. So on this particular slide, we can see about DR, wherein we have multiple AZ in place and all the things, sync, replication, and there's a automatic failover mechanism which has been implemented. So it increases the availability. So whenever you have across region or across AZ replication, so that is automatically called disaster, high availability. So it automatically works for disaster recovery. So if one data center is going for a toss, or if there's any kind of calamity in that particular region, so as I've already told you that Amazon maintains it different AZs with different ISPs, different power supply and everything. All the vendors are different. So you will have the data which is intact in some other AZ that can be immediately come into play. So one DNS name automatic app failover to standby. So by this, what I mean is we'll be going onto the lab section and we'll be seeing that, what is our, DNS name, which we go ahead and give to a particular database and how it works in going ahead and not being bothering about how many, instance which you have created in terms of different AZs, or whether you are talking to the master DB or whether you are talking to a replica. So this helps you in a lot of failover cases. We'll be discussing that in details in the upcoming section. This is a very important point to be noted, which can even come into the examination. So multi-AZ is for disaster recovery. So as this particular slide itself illustrates that it's, for, sorry, let me just go ahead and have some water. So these are mainly essential, good to know things which are not gonna come for examination, but this kind of question definitely comes for examination. That TD is available only for Oracle and SQL servers. So just remember, if the question comes, if is TD implemented for Postgres or MariaDB, so you can just say that it's not available. So these kind of questions will definitely pop up in the examinations. And you can just go ahead and have a note of this and you can study it after post this particular class. What is a transparent data encryption? Encryption, I've already explained, there are various kinds of encryptions. The best and the most authentic one, if you want to use it on AWS, it's AWS KMS. And that we'll be using in our lab as well, and SSL certification in flight. So as I've already explained I guess in the first or the second class, that there are various motions of a particular data. It's in flight, it's at rest, it's hot, it's warm, it's cold. So there are various states of a data and there are various movements. So SSL, so for example, there's one server and there's server B. So if data is at flight, that means the data is getting transferred from one server to another. So you have SSL certification encryption technology, which can help the the security of that particular data on the flight as well. So these are again, I've just jotted it down for the examination purposes. So you can just have a quick look. We'll be soon going to the lab, so that would be just going ahead and clearing off most of your queries. This is a very important section to encrypt an unencrypted RDS database. So as you can go through this particular slide itself, that if there is a database which was you can give a circumstance wherein you are the solution architect and you have landed up to a company wherein the previous architect did not encrypt the data at the go. So what would happen in this particular case is you have to encrypt the data, and your management has been asking. So you have to create a snapshot of the unencrypted database, copy the snapshot and enable the encryption for that particular snapshot. So you have a snapshot which is encrypted now. And when you restore the database from that encrypted snapshot, automatically it gets encrypted as a database. And then you migrate your application layer to the new database and delete the old database. So hope I'm clear on this particular thing.
Yes, this thing is applied in EBS volume as well. If initially that is not encrypted, and through snapshot, the way we can encrypt the same.
Yeah. You can do that. You can copy the snapshot as well, and you can encrypt it. So there are various things which you can do. We'll be just going and discussing that in our next class, as well as the session in which we'll be going ahead and doing the lab. RDS security network and IAM. So as you guys are already aware that there's something known as access management. So we can also deploy that access management policies to go ahead and control the RDS, and traditional username password, which has already been there and always will be there for any kind of database authentication. So we'll be going ahead and using this traditional username and password for our database creation and usage as well. And this is again an examination question. IAM based authentication can be used to log in into RDS, SQL, MySQL, and Post. So rest of the IAM based authentication are not being used. So remember that whenever this comes as an examination query, that can you do it for Microsoft SQL? So your answer should be no. Moving on to the next slide. Here is a IAM authentication which we have tried to go ahead and illustrate onto the diagram, wherein you can see that there is a EC2 security group which we have implied on the EC2 instance which we have created. There's an API call for authentication for RDS services, and there's a SSL encryption for token passing mechanism, which goes to MySQL directly. So the benefit of these kind of architecture is that network in and out must be encrypted using SSL. By this, what I mean is the entire security of the data which is at rest as well as at flight, everything, even if it's talking to your EC2 instances, they are just going ahead and having the full at most secure data. So authentication token has a TTL of 15 minutes. So we'll be going ahead and seeing this particular section in the lab as well. So I'll illustrate then and there that what is a TTL and how to go ahead and minimize the 15-minute authentication token and so on. Sorry. So this is a quick summary wherein you can just go ahead and have a quick look for most of the accesses. So there's no SSH access. So a lot of time question can come. So you have to, there's no manual DB patching, there's no manual OS patching, which is required. So these are your responsibilities, that you have to check the ports, IP, and security groups, inbound rules for DB and SG. In database user creation and permission or managed through IAMs. Create database with or without public access. So we'll be also covering something as Aurora secure serverless into this particular section, wherein all of these things would be covered by the AWS, and we have nothing to go ahead and worry about replication or even taking a snapshot or how to go ahead and work around it. So that's another key feature what we'll be discussing. Let me just have a quick check onto the recording part. Yes, we are recording. So this is Aurora. We won't be jumping onto Aurora. Before that, let's move on to the lab section. For this, we'll be going down to Opera. Give me one quick second. And here you go. So this is the management console, as you are already aware. Let me just switch off the unwanted application because this is gonna consume some good memory. Okay, so this is the console which you have been seeing so far, and here we go. So under the category of database, you can just go ahead and find RDS, or you can just go ahead and type in RDS over here. And you can see that manage relation database services. So you just need to click on that. And here you go. So you are landing up to the page wherein you can see the left side of the page. You can find all those query editor, performance, snapshot, automatic backups, proxies, subnet group, parameter groups, option groups, events, and so on. So we'll be covering these kind of things soon. Let's cross it out. They just want to go ahead and do the proprietary advertisement most of the time. So you'll find Aurora, and Aurora is a good examination question bank, because they'll be asking a lot of questions around Aurora. So here you can find that there's no DB instance running. At an account level, you are given 20 instances. So if you need to increase those, you can just go ahead and ask AWS to go ahead and increase that particular section. And rest of the details you can just go ahead and see. So we'll be doing is we'll be creating a new database. And you can see there's no database. Let's create a new database. So over here, you can see that they'll always ask for your feedback. Now, as a personal advice, it's always good to go ahead and give feedbacks, because AWS diligently and religiously takes all the feedbacks and they go ahead and work up around it. So most of these things which have been doing so far, like they are making so many services available to the end user. It's all in all deployed and developed around our feedbacks. So I'll check it out. I'll just go ahead and cross it over for the time being. And another good practice, which I'll just go ahead and illustrate, is like, there's an info section. Whenever you go ahead and create onto this info section, you would go ahead and create, give you a kind of a detailed description towards your right-hand side. So always go ahead and switch it on. So if you click on easy create, it would just go ahead and automate most of the stuff. So we are not going to do this because we have to deep dive into how to create the database and everything. So let's not, we'll go ahead and do the standard creation. So now these are the various engines which are offered by AWS RDS. So you have Aurora as usual. They want to promote Aurora a lot. So this is the first in the lot. The second is MySQL, which most of us have worked on. You guys might have worked on MariaDB as well, Postgres, SQL, Oracle, and SQL Server, Microsoft. So today we are gonna do the free tier. So I'll just go ahead and do it on MySQL, sorry. So as you can see, as soon as I clicked on MySQL, you have a description towards your right. So while you're creating, as a law of the thumb, you can just go ahead and have it onto the right section, because it doesn't take much play area of the page, but it gives you some important information, like the limit, like 64 GB to 64 terabytes. So now here comes the very big question: why and when we are supposed to go ahead and select any of these databases? What is the core purpose? Like if you are the solution architect and if a particular company asks you to go ahead and define a solution in which database is of course the most essential part, how do you define that, okay, this either Aurora would be a good fit, or MariaDB would be a good fit, or Oracle would be a good fit, or Postgres would be a good fit? So how do you define this? This is the major question, and if you will answer this, I'll seriously admire that particular thing.
So in this case, Vijay, basically a person should have overall view of all these 6 databases, right?
Very nicely said. Any more inputs?
I think, because business will tell about the budget constraints. So based on the budget and like what all tools, interfaces we are interacting with these DB. So what is compatibility for those?
Very good. I'm seriously happy with your answers today. I think you guys are pulling up your socks and working really hard. So you as you rightly said, it completely depends on the kind of stitching which you have to do for a kind of a solution. By this, what I mean is, what is the basic operating system they want to use as a server system? What kind of token mechanisms they are going to use? What is the maximum scale of instances we can use? What is the maximum amount of storage which we can visualize? whether it would be in TVs or, it would be in even moving ahead, whether we really want a structured query language or we want a flat file or we want a non-structured query language. So any of these, things are under the consideration while you go ahead and customize a particular solution for any particular client. So even, what kind of replication is required, whether they are a banking system and they want to keep everything within the country, within the same region, or they want to just go ahead and, have a disaster recovery thing. So like if you take in one case, what is the maximum limit? So MariaDB can be expanded. So as I can click on this, and if I click on the info part, so you can see that if I click on this info, so it gives me the description about MariaDB. So it can go up to 64 terabytes, support database up to 64 terabytes. But if it's even larger than that, then we'll be using, Oracle probably, because, there's no limitation for this. We can go up to nth level, or you can use, Microsoft SQL servers. So there are limitations, high availability we have been talking about since a long time, but if you're using very rapid scale, so you'll be using some kind of elastic caching as well. So these are the terms and things which you have to always keep in mind, apart from knowing everything about, because no person can either be a master of database on all the, given categories. There are even much more databases which is not even mentioned over here. So, you can encompass them as well. What I have experienced throughout my life, that whatever people are complacent about, by complacent, I mean they are comfortable with a particular technology, they'll always try to go ahead and implement that particular technology. But while I'm illustrating and I expect you guys to go ahead and learn more and more about new technologies, I don't want you to be a super expert about that particular technology, but you should know the in and out about that particular technology so that you can implement the fullest of those technologies while going ahead and stitching a solution for that particular, for a particular client, or, if you have your own thing to do. So enough of discussions. We are in the lab section. So here you can find all the blends or all the, versions of MySQL which has been released. So we'll be sticking on to 8.0.17. So, okay, this is a very important section. No issues and limitations. So this I have already copied, and I'll be sending it to you guys onto the group chat, so that you can go it forward, or you can do it, at your home as well. So there are 3 different kind of templates. So we'll of course choose free tier as of now. But if you have a high availability production and fast, performance, high performance, low latency kind of a production deployment, so you have to choose this one. And if you are into CI/CD, or if you are into desk or development environment, then you have to choose this one. So here comes the naming. So let's keep it as, what shall we keep? My first RDS. And master name, I won't keep it as admin, because again, it's a good practice, and I'll always say you that never ever keep your master name, username as admin, because the first hacker knows is like 80% of the global population who have been learning about servers, they go ahead and keep it as admin, as it's the short form of administrator. So I always go ahead and do it as admino. And password, let's keep it as password for the time being. Though this is not the best practice, you can always go ahead and click on auto generate, and you can just go ahead and get the copy paste done. But for our current class, we'll just go ahead and keep it as password. Now here comes, as we have selected the free tier, so it won't give us the option to go ahead and select anything else apart from the free tier group, which is T2 macro. So let's not debate about that. And this is bustable classes and include previous versions. This is nothing to do with your exam, neither about your knowledge set. These are the provisioned IOPS and 2 different flavors which you get for storage type. So as again, if you click on the info, you can just go ahead and know, because if you tend to forget anything, you can just go ahead and have a quick check, why and what needs to be done. Let's keep it as the minimum as 20. Storage auto scaling. So this is a very important section wherein it automatically enhances or auto scales as the database increases. So this same example which we were talking about, and Abhishek asked that we can go ahead and create our own. So who is gonna go ahead and take all that pain to go ahead and descale or auto scale the kind of instances which you have provisioned? Over here, if there's a particular threshold level, it automatically goes ahead and creates a new reference, either a new instance, or it can just go ahead and increase the instance hardware capabilities. So both vertical and horizontal expansion is provisioned. So availability and durability, if in free tier it's not available, but whenever you are into the production line, you can always go ahead and create standby instances. VPC, we have a dedicated class on VPC, so let's not be overwhelmed by the term virtual private cloud, because we'll be going ahead and covering it in much more detail. Additional connectivity details, subnet. So for this, most of the time people go ahead and fail over in this particular section, wherein publicly accessible. So none of the database should be ever publicly accessible as a good practice, because you should not let your database to be leaked out. If there's any kind of Trojan or any kind of malicious activities being done by any crooked guy, so he can just go ahead and enter your database, and he can just go ahead and either delete, create, or whatsoever he wants to do. So it's always a good practice to go ahead, and if it's yes, then you have to go ahead and guide it to the servers which are going to communicate with your database servers. So you have to just go ahead and choose the EC2 instance and the IP segment from where it would communicate. And here are also, by the way, user groups. So you can just go ahead and omit any kind of malicious intents or malicious activities been coming up to your database. So over here, this time, since we are doing a lab, so let's go ahead and keep it as publicly accessible. And security groups, which we were like talking about, we can choose it from launch wizard, or we can just go ahead and create a new security. My first SG for anything. Structured query language. We can provision availability in terms of the zone. So you can select either A or B from here. And this is the database port number, which is I have recently sent you to go ahead and remember that, because it always comes into the examination. This is for MySQL. This is not for others. So always keep in mind that every goddamn database has it got its own port numbers. So though these things doesn't come in examination, but these are like good to know things. And database authentication is a password. And here is the thing which we were like talking about, that it has got IAM authentication mode as well, wherein we can consume the IAMs to go ahead and authenticate, or even you can even control the rights, whether this particular identity can just read or write or delete permissions and so on. So this is a very good option which they have given, which if you want to go ahead and configure on a manual basis, this would take ages to go ahead and first configure SQL, MySQL, and then to go ahead and again, configure the roles and responsibilities. So there are various sections altogether to go ahead and that's where the database administrative job come into picture. But if you are a developer and you just need to consume a database and you want to go ahead and create a database, so this is like a magic wand for you guys, wherein you can just go ahead and do that. Additional configuration, initial database name. So if you want to have a lot deeper dive into this, but these are out of the scope of your examination, so it never comes. So what kind of redundancy you have, error logs, which you can go ahead and create. It would accrue some charges if you just go ahead and check mark these, because that would enable a CloudWatch service again, which is a costly affair. So if you want to do that, you can, but I won't suggest you to go ahead and do it right now. These are the maintenance things. No preferences. If you want to go ahead and select a window, it would even give you the modification in terms of when, Amazon RDS would go ahead and, do the maintenance job to a particular date, time period, to the particular day period and everything. This is some important section wherein if there's a kind of deletion protection, it's same as EC2, which we have already gone through, wherein if you want to accidentally delete something database, it won't allow you to go ahead and do that. So enough of talking. Let's just go ahead and roll up this particular database. These are some important features again. So let's just go ahead and create. So mind you, now it would go ahead and take some good sweet amount of time because, at the back end, if we don't have access to the SSH, as I've already told you, elsewise we could have easily seen what are things are going, in the logs folder. So they might be creating some instances right now. Then the tables would be created, the data schema would be created. Everything, is happening in real time. And who is taking care of this? Amazon is taking care of this. So AWS provisioning the entire server, which is like a magical thing these days, wherein you don't need to be a SQL administrator, and you can still spin up this particular server. So in the meanwhile, let's not waste our time. And if you just go ahead and click onto this, as you can see, there's no CPU, there's no current activity and so on going forward. What kind of class of machine which you have rolled up. So everything is available over here. The current information it shows us creating, it would take some good amount of time to go ahead and create. You can see the subnets over here and rest of the things. In the meanwhile, if you guys are not very, very friendly with the command prompt, which you'll be going ahead and consuming your database on, I would recommend that there's always a, GUID for that, GUID, wherein you can just go ahead and patch up a particular database using the endpoints and the authentication, and that can just go ahead and create. So you guys can see my screen, so I'll just go ahead and click onto that. So that's known as SQL Electron. So in the meanwhile, you guys can just go ahead and download SQL Electron. So this gives you a single, it would give you a kind of reference window from where you can execute commands for going ahead and, so this is a very useful thing because earlier we used to go ahead and write it on the bash commands, and that was seriously very, very shady. So you can just go ahead and choose the flavor of operating system which you're consuming from here. So this is the link. So you can just go ahead and Google it. In the meanwhile, you can just go ahead and download it so that from this GitHub link, and still it's not working, still it's creating. So by the way, I have downloaded it, so, and I frequently use it. So I'll just go ahead and share the entire screen so that you guys can see it.
Vijay, the purpose of this SQL Electron, I didn't get it. Why we need it?
So earlier, when you used to go ahead and connect to your database, you need to have a UI to go ahead and do that. Are you getting my point? Or you have to type in the commands, or you have to type in the query. So you need to have a dashboard wherein you have to go ahead and type in the query, as AWS doesn't gives you the SSH route. So this is a very important tool wherein you can just go ahead and click onto this, and that would help you to give you a graphical user interface. So this is strange. I think it's open somewhere. it's not. Sorry about this, folks. Okay. This seems to be a problem then. Okay, this is very strange. I've been like using it for so long, but today it's not working. So I'll quit it, I'll delete it, and I'll download it a new copy altogether. Let me just see, I have removed it from my applications. Yes, seems so. So let me again download it quickly. So here you find all the blends. So I'll be using a DMG because I'm using a Mac. And here we go. It's downloading. So here we go. So verify, no, cancel. So this is a security concern, which I guess after updation, it has come on my Mac, which is not allowing my Mac to go ahead and use it. But let me see if I can find a way around. Bingo. So we are in business and we are back. So this is Electron, what I generally use. So over here, you can connect the server, whatever you want to use, which you have created right now. And this can connect to any goddamn server. If you're spinning up Azure, if you're spinning up AWS, or if you're spinning up some kind of, local instances as well on some kind of shared hosting. So it gives you the easy. So this is very easy to go ahead and connect, and it has got a test window as well, which gives you the agility to go ahead and test immediately whether your instance was up and running or not. So by now, I cross my fingers and I go back to the console and I see that it's available. But always mind you that since you guys would be working gradually onto this, but until unless it doesn't show backing up, that means it's not fully functional as of now, but we'll have a quick check onto this. So first thing first was we'll copy the endpoint. So this is what we were discussing, that you'll get an endpoint and this should be publicly referenceable. So this would come under the name of host address. Now comes, so you can always click on view admino, and the password was the thing, endpoint was the thing. So the username and the password, but you need to copy the database name over here. Now we made a SQL, MySQL database. If you want to switch it on, but you have to go ahead and give the proxies as well as the certification for that as well. It automatically picks up the port number, which is very good. You never need to remember. And here I'll type in the username and the password. Now let's test it and keep my fingers crossed. Hope it doesn't come up with an error, but if it comes, it would be just for one reason. We haven't configured the security group. It's taking too much of time. And here you go, timeout. So I think we have to play around with the security group. So let's go back and play with the security group because we did not get a chance to go ahead and configure that. So in this case, you can just go ahead and have a maneuvering. Like, always it's a good practice to go ahead and maneuver what all things you have within the instance or how you are going to modify it. So you find a modify click button over here, but it's a good practice if you just go ahead and click on this. My first security group, we have created it, but there was no authentication mechanism which was being given to this. If I may see, MySQL Aurora TCP is open for source this. It should be anywhere because we can go ahead and communicate with this from anywhere. So what I'm going to do is I'll edit some inbound rules and now I'll add up also. Let's be on a safer side and give it some more lineage. Though this is good to go, but this is for Microsoft SQL, I guess. So not required. You can just delete this. Add rule. Okay, sorry. So they keep on changing the buttons from one point to the other. Now we have added and we can see that it has allowed from anywhere. And if we go back to our services, it should allow us now. And also let me quickly see if in the modification section, we have given the liberty to be accessed from anywhere. Publicly accessible. So this was the most important thing which you have always to go ahead and check if it's yes or if it's a no. So it's clicked on yes. I'll say continue. Apply immediately. This is another very important thing which you have to see, that current maintenance window is so and so. So you have to always go ahead and click on this because it would take its own sweet time to go ahead and modify. But there's some kind of error message which comes up. If you choose to apply changes in modification query. But we haven't changed anything, so we'll just go ahead and let it be like this. Still available, and it doesn't show us backing up. Generally, the info should be showing up as backing up for immediate connection, but let's give it a try once more because we have played around with the security group, and I'll go back to my Electron. Let's see what it has got to say. And here we go for test. Oh, wow, the connection is successful. So as you can see that it was what we did not play around good with the security group, and that was the reason that we could not access it. So you guys, while working on, would have these kind of problems. But you never need to just go ahead and have a shut down shoulders or be like demotivated or demoralized. Just think logically where exactly you have missed a particular point, and this is the correction. So this is the place wherein you type in select and so on, all those scripting. This is not a database class, so we'll not be better deep diving into that. But here is your database. Here are your tables and everything. This is the schema. As you can see, there's no schema which has been built out until here. the performance window. So if you are a good SQL expert, you can just go ahead and play around over here. If you find any error logs, you can directly back it up to GitHub. So there are various good features which, and this is, by the way, connected to your database. So you can always go to your database any given point of time. So with this, we are just left with, say, about 4 minutes. Let me just go ahead and jump down to Aurora because our first lab is done. We'll be going back to the slides. And let's just go ahead and see what Aurora has to offer us. So here we go. So this is the highly talked about service, and they are like portraying it as well as talking about it in all the seminars. And this is the highest paid thing, highest asked questions as well, which examinations would be talking about. So this is nothing but this is a priority technology which was open source, not an open source. So this is something to be noted because as I told you that it can be open source because it was earlier been conceived over two different kind of databases, that's Postgres and MySQL, but right now they have just gone ahead and do a proprietary. So of course this is not an open source anymore, and that's a closed source. So this is like optimized for the cloud which we were talking about. It claims to be 5 times performance improved from MySQL or RDS and 3 times more faster as compared to Postgres on RDS. So as you can see that, they have worked really hard that, it has improved its performance, and, it has improved its performance not only in terms of read and write capabilities, but even for the token mechanism and everything, which will once you start working on Aurora, because I have personally worked a couple of projects on Aurora, so I dedicatedly know it. So, this is seriously something which you should learn, and you should just go ahead and have your hands dirty with this and play around with this, and it would be a good practice. Aurora has got a automatically growing mechanism, which can, if you just go ahead and, if you want to say, it can automatically scale from 10 GBs to 64 terabyte. What else do you want in life? It can give you the liberty that, you just create a database, you create a data schema, and after that, you never need to work on the auto scaling part. It would automatically take care of it. It has got 15 replicas of MySQL, and Aurora has got its own 15 replicas, wherein MySQL we have the limitation of 5, and this is much more faster as compared to the initial RDS which they go ahead and provide. Failover, again, that's highly available because that's a native thing as well as abducted from the core, and Aurora is instantaneous. It's more like you can have a cross-region replication as well. That's a default within this. We'll be covering that section in the upcoming slides. And we'll be working on the cost part as well. But always keep in mind that the cost part doesn't come into the questions more or less. So let's not be worried about that. So 6 copies. So this particular slide clearly illustrates that when you try to go ahead and write any kind of data onto Aurora, the chances of losing that particular data is like negligible, because 6 copies are maintained over 3 AZs. So you can understand a region constitutes of 3 or more AZs, and 6 copies of your data is been replicated on 3 AZs. So this is this line clearly illustrates. It has got self-healing capabilities. So if there's any kind of database malfunctioning, so the peer-to-peer replication automatically occurs. So they have completely moved it from a orthodox mechanism to an AI mechanism, wherein if they find on an automatic scale that if there's any kind of data loss or anything happening onto one of the peer systems, so peer-to-peer replication automatically takes place. Storage is stripped across hundreds of volumes. So you can understand it that once you go ahead and keep a data in Aurora, forget that you'll ever lose the data. So Aurora instance talks and writes on master We'll be talking in detail about this. Automated failover for master is less than 30 seconds. We'll be talking about this as well in the upcoming slide. And as I told you that it has got a cross region replication, which means we are not just talking about the AZ, we can even go ahead and, do it in India, and the same thing would be replicated in, Virginia, or, be it, in Sao Paulo, in South America. So this is an easy understanding diagram wherein you have one master which gives you a writer endpoint. Please focus onto this particular slide because these are examination questions. Whenever they try to go ahead and ask you that, can you directly communicate to any read replicas of Aurora? So your answer should be that it would be always routed through the reader endpoint, and the writer endpoint is just to go ahead and point to the master for any kind of writing purposes. So immediately this is, as you can see at the bottom, it has got a shared storage volume which can expand from 10 GBs to 64 TBs, and this is on an automatic scale. So whenever you go ahead and create a database and you define an endpoint which is a writer endpoint, it automatically goes onto the shared storage volume and immediately it starts replicating itself. How many times would it replicate? If anyone can answer that question.
6 times.
18 times actually, I think.
Very good. So someone is paying attention. So 15 times is the max, and you can always go ahead and configure these kind of things onto the Aurora. So automatic failovers, backup and recovery, isolation and security, industry compliances, push button scaling. So these are all the features of Aurora. Advanced monitoring, routine maintenance, backup and restore across various regions from where you can just go ahead and replicate. So if your entire region is down, you can immediately within a click of a second, you can just go ahead and move your entire application layer to the other region and it would be up and running. So it's more or less similar to RDS because they use the same engine, which is Postgres as well as MySQL, and encryption mechanism at rest using KMS. So these are the things which are good to know. And talking about the security, we can just go through quickly. And by this, I'll just go ahead and stop the recording because we are way ahead of time.